Good evening, everybody, and welcome back to another video. My name is Tom. Thank you so much for joining me. I'm standing outside on my deck. It is pitch black outside, but you know what? My day doesn't end when the sun sets, so these videos kind of happen when they happen. So forgive the black hole behind me, but I wanted to relatively quickly do this video because I'm a little bit excited. I'm very bubbly. I did recover from whatever cold or sickness I had. Pretty much 95% recovered. I have a little bit to go, but the headaches are gone, the nausea's gone, all of that stuff's gone. So I'm back. I'm back to whatever health level I can be at for just my day-to-day. I went back to work. I got a lot of emails to catch up on and lots of stuff to do, but I wanted to quickly share this with you guys because I got a frantic phone call from Los Angeles, and it was one of my buddies. He said, "Have you seen the news?" And I'm thinking to myself, no, I've been in bed and I haven't really cared about the news, but suffice it to say, he said, "You need to go to this link." He sent me the link, and guess what it says? GM CEO Mary Barra says Tesla charging deal will save the automaker up to $400 million. If you scroll down a little bit, here's what it says. And I'm actually going to post this link down below. It's a CNBC link. Key points. GM expects to save up to $400 million through an EV charging deal with Tesla. You know what that means, right? Yeah. Electrify America. They're coming for you. GM said in October of 2021 that it planned to spend $750 million on EV charging infrastructure in the U.S. and Canada. The deal between GM and Tesla will grant General Motors electric vehicles owners access to more than 12,000 of Tesla's fast chargers starting next year. Wow. You know what? I've had a lot of bad things to say about GM. I've had a lot of just general negativity towards the brand. I've mentioned it before, and I'll say it again, just for transparency. I love my car. I love the Bolt EUV. I think it's one of the most practical, functional, solid vehicles that I've ever owned. And I've owned a lot. I've owned a lot of cars since I got my driver's license way back when. But let me be clear about something. Driving the Bolt EV and EUV, because I've had both, has been a real treat in some ways. In many cases, it's just fun. I recently was on the road, stopped at a red light, and there was, a Cummins pickup truck in front of me, and they decided to just roll coal. And I think it's the stupidest thing to do, for many reasons, but it just shows, the intelligence isn't really there when it comes to the driver. And it's not really fun either. It doesn't prove anything, It just proves that you know how to tune your engine so that it, spews pollution and black smoke into the atmosphere, which ultimately makes it worse for all of us, including the person that's doing it. But I love the fact that I was sitting behind that person and I was emitting zero pollution. Now, there's an argument to be made about EVs and the pollution that's incurred when producing, the hardware, the battery packs, and so much and such for the vehicles. That there's always pollution. Well, that's true, but the idea is, what's the cumulative footprint of that pollution across the entire ecosystem, whether it's GM as a whole or whether it's Ford or Tesla or Rivian? What can you do to minimize that that footprint on the environment? And honestly, electric vehicles, if they last, let's say, a decade, Maybe they do, maybe they don't. I don't know. We know that there are 6-year-old Bolt EVs on the road that have recently gone through a battery pack replacement, and guess what? It's like a brand new car. You know, if you treat your car right, it's going to treat you right. If you take a Bolt EV off-road, if you do that, send me pictures, because I want to laugh at stupidity. But let's be clear about something. The Bolt EV and EUV platforms they're built on a solid platform. They're built on a solid technology that has, outside of the recall, has proven to be very, very solid. And, I gave GM a lot of crap over the last few months just because of my horrendous experiences, and I don't regret doing that. And I'm not apologizing, but at the same time, I am acknowledging that there is some innovation, there is some, mental process or concept somewhere at GM where, things like this are still able to happen. And whatever the deals that end up coming in the future may be, whatever, if GM decides to start their own charging infrastructure like Rivian did with their Rivian Adventure Network, or like Tesla with their, Tesla Destination and Supercharger Network, I don't know. I think there'd be something to be said about having partnerships between all the EV manufacturers. Like, Tesla, we know, has their crap in order. There's absolutely no argument there. In fact, the only argument that can be made is, how come this didn't happen 6 years ago or 7 years ago? And I think a lot of that has to do with just the sheer amount of money that it costs to deploy a technology like this, to deploy a network of chargers. What did this say? This said 12,000 Tesla fast chargers. I mean, I don't know what it costs to put up a fast charging site, but let's say GM had to do, their own charging network. I don't know if they might spend, 10 million on per site. I don't know what they cost. I'm sure there's permits, I'm sure there's licenses, I'm sure there's leases and hardware that has to be R&D'd and developed and designed and manufactured. I'm sure if you were to put a round number like 10 million per site, 12,000 would be what, $1.2 trillion, if I'm doing the math right, or $1 billion, I'm sorry. Yeah, 10 million. That's 4 zeros. I'm just having a hard time doing the math. Or maybe it's $121 billion. You guys do the math. I don't know. I suck at math. That, and it's 20 minutes till midnight, so leave me alone. But, I don't know. I think this makes sense. I think this is actually one of the best things that could happen. And to tie this all together with what we went through in Colombia last week, which was honestly a real disappointment to CCS vehicle owners. The amount of cars that I saw the first time when I went down, if I recall correctly, it was either 12, it was in between 12 or 15 cars. I can't remember correctly. We can always look back at the video and, maybe rewatch that and get the right numbers. But let's say there was 15 cars waiting in line to use one CCS charging stall because the other 3 were dead. Not only that, the fourth one, the last one that was working, was operating at 55 kilowatts. Yeah, it was operating at 55 kilowatt reduced power mode for reasons of hardware failure. And it's very, very hard to drive through this state, South Carolina specifically, and have a backup. What I mean by that is, if I'm heading, let's say I'm doing a road trip from here to Miami, and one of my charging stops is Columbia. It probably would have to be one of my charging spots, because if I leave here at 100% and get there at 50%, plus minus, I might get there with 65% if I'm doing the math right. There isn't another charger until you get to Georgia. Yeah. That's quite a bit of distance. And the problem is that you can't risk, inclement weather or something, headwind, whatever, that's going to make you consume more energy and ultimately leave you in a position where range anxiety becomes real. I shared with you guys my experience with range anxiety before Memorial Day. When I came back, I missed the exit on the freeway. And by the time I realized that I missed the exit, I was about 20 miles past my point of no return, meaning that I wasn't going to get to my house, and I had to find my way to a DC fast charger to make up not only the charge that I lost for missing the exit, but now having to double back to 20 miles and then drive 30 miles south to get to my house. It's rough. It's one of those things where you have to you really have to plan stuff out, and it makes it really hard. Now, I know people do it all the time. There was an Audi e-tron owner that I spoke to, talk to in Columbia, and he said that he had to charge his vehicle up to 95% in order to make it to Charleston, South Carolina, which is, that way. I think it's about 170 miles, 175 miles or so from here. And that's from here. It might be a little bit more from Columbia, because Columbia is more inland, south and inland, towards the Georgia border. But nevertheless, if you look at the Tesla charging map, there's a ton more coverage. In fact, I wanted to kind of print out just a picture to hold up to the camera, because it's nighttime and it's really hard to do show and tell. But there's a lot more charging places for superchargers than there are DC fast charging stations. There's one decent one so far in South Carolina, and that's the new one that's up in Greenville. If you're driving through South Carolina and you're coming from Georgia up the 85, say you're going to Charlotte and you're coming through South Carolina, you'll have a decent stop in Greenville. There's lots of restaurants, lots of stores, lots of things to do, walk around. There's the fast chargers are in a Sam's Club parking lot, so if you're a member, hit it. There's a Walmart close by. You can do grocery shopping or whatever, or even stop by for lunch, like I said. And there's some nice restaurants over there. It's in a really good spot. But that said, it takes me 75 minutes to get to that charger from my house. I don't have a local charger. I have a level 2 that's in a park that may or may not work, when it rains, which is pretty much 2 to 3 times a week here. It is what it is. And on top of that, we've got people in Congress that believe that electric vehicles are destroying roadways and that their sheer weight is just, collapsing infrastructure, and the cost of putting in DC fast charging or whatnot is so ridiculous that it doesn't make sense to even invest in the technology. And I'm sitting here literally looking at the stuff thinking I'm in a bad dream, because I can't believe that there's so much stupidity on the planet that would actually warrant the time of day before a camera, no less, to a person that would say something like that. I mean, not only is it confusing to the people that want to look at becoming an EV driver, or EV owner, I should say, and being able to experience what it means to have an electric vehicle on the road, but it also confuses the general public, because it's like, well, this person is in some form of authority and power. Are they going to change things around, that they're going to make the state less friendly towards EVs? If the charging stations that are currently online start collapsing and falling apart, is anybody going to fix them? Is anybody going to do anything? Or are we going to have the same thing we have in Colombia with Electrify America, where they can't get parts? Supposedly, they can't get parts. I haven't been able to verify any supply chain issues with regard to equipment that's going in for DC fast charging stations. I don't know if you guys heard anything, or if you guys know anybody that's in that line of work. Feel free to go down below and leave me your thoughts, because seriously, a part of this rattles me. Another part of this makes me happy that GM is potentially understanding and grasping the gravity of the charging infrastructure as a whole. You know, they are in more than one way steaming ahead with electric vehicles. I regret that the Bolt EV is not going to be part of that lineup. They could have easily, in my opinion, modified the BEV2 platform to accept the Ultium platform, but it is what it is. If the Equinox is the next torchbearer for the Bolt EV line, then so be it. But until that happens, I won't hold my breath. And until this agreement goes into effect next year in 2024, I'm just going to have to rely on the only charger that I've been able to rely on since 2020, when I bought my very first Chevrolet Bolt EV Premier in 2020, right before Thanksgiving. And that would be my very own must-start 40 amp level 2 charger. My car's plugged in right now, it's charging. I don't even really need to think about it. All I know is that tomorrow, should I need to go somewhere, if I need to drive somewhere, that battery pack is going to be loaded, and I don't have to consider DC fast charging. If I'm doing a road trip, obviously I'm planning that out, but the good thing is, if I do a road trip, it's probably going to be beyond the state of South Carolina. If I go up to North Carolina, or if I go to Tennessee, or if I even go down to Florida, which I intend on doing in a few months. Don't tell anybody, don't tell my son, but he's got a road trip coming up to Florida for his birthday, for his 10th birthday. We're going to go down to all the Disney places, all the fun stuff. And we're going to do that in the Bolt. And we're going to, we're going to do videos of that. We're going to try to do as much as we can. And we move on. We have to move on, because we can't be reveling in hostility and all sorts of anger, management issues, because we can't get a charge. Colombia needs to be written off the Electrify America app. I think so. The other thing that I think is that Electrify America really needs to get on the ball, because Tesla's coming for them, and if they want to stay in business, and if they want to continue doing the kind of work that they do, and not appear to be a failure, a colossal failure that stemmed from the Dieselgate scandal, then they need to fire some people up at the top, and they need to come off their purchase, and they need to literally decide what they're going to do. I don't know if you guys can see the deer out there. They're walking behind me. But yeah, there's no other way around it. If you have supply chain issues, you get off your butt and you do something about it. You can't just say, oh, we're just going to make people wait. Oh, and then you don't update the app either, because the app still says that those chargers are available. In fact, I'm very curious whether or not the Electrify America app shows them as offline. So let me grab my phone here real quick and look them up. And Columbia, let's see. It says 3 of 4 chargers available. It says charger 1. Check this out. I'm going to show this to you guys this way. It's going to suck, but I'm going to try it anyway. Notice that CCS is unavailable. So CCS, port 1's unavailable. Port 2 says 50 kilowatts. Charger 2, port 1's unavailable. Charger 2, or port 2 says 50 kilowatts. 3 is down, and 4 says 150 kilowatts. So nothing's changed. Nothing's changed. And I've already said it several times that charging sites that have less than 12 chargers are probably going to start being pretty useless in the near future, just because with the sheer influx of electric vehicles that's going to happen, over the next few years, with more and more models coming out, and later this year, early next year. Even the Chevrolet models, the Equinox, the Trailblazer, the Silverado, the Hummer, even, if you go crazy, if you want to spend $120,000 on I'd spend 120 grand if I had it on a Hummer, because I think there's nothing cooler than taking a turn and crabbing the back end of the vehicle. Anyway, it's getting late. You guys go down below, leave me your thoughts. I have mixed feelings right now with regard to CCS and its usefulness. I haven't heard anything about EVgo or ChargePoint or anything like that recently. The news about them has been silent, at least what I've been able to find in my little lunch break of a research session that I had. But if you guys know anything, share the knowledge. Go down below, leave me your thoughts, and also let me know how I look, because I'm using a brand new camera. I decided to abandon the newer models of GoPro, and I decided to go with the DJI Action 3 camera, which is what I'm using right now. I'm using the low light settings, and I'm using actually my back porch light as, a main light. So I'm curious to see how this footage will look, because if I can shoot at night better with this camera, that'd be great, because I like to shoot at night. Also, I'm a night owl. I don't really function well during the day. But anyway, you guys have a good evening, and as always, I really appreciate you guys for sticking around and watching the videos, liking and subscribing to the channel. That's always very, very much appreciated. Until next time, guys, thank you so much for watching. Take care. Bye-bye.